I'm Annie Goldson. I'm a professor here in the Department of Film, Television and Media Studies. Specifically, I work a lot on the screen program, which is our film production side. Initially, I was a journalist. I did a postgraduate diploma in journalism at Canterbury University and started working for Radio New Zealand. But I was always drawn to working in the visual medium too, so I actually went to New York City and taught myself filmmaking. But I also continued an academic career. So now I sort of teach across the theory production divide. I both write specifically around what's called documentary studies, but also produce films. I've really been working in documentary since the late 1980s, really, and I've tended to do longer format, social, political, historical documentary. Luckily for me, production has become more fashionable within the academy, so I've always kept up a kind of writing research career as well, but increasingly the university has supported me doing film work, so I've tended again to straddle this divide. I am teaching mostly at postgraduate level at the moment, which is pretty satisfying. I teach a course in the theory of documentary, the history and theory of documentary, so that's a theory paper, but I also teach a directing documentary paper, which is a hands-on directing course. And I find some of my students do both those courses, so they're quite well aware of the history of the genre, but also can go on and explore doing their own work. They're just a handful really, but I've found very often I end up working with them once they've graduated. Sometimes they come on board of my bigger productions as summer scholars. So it's quite an exciting exchange, and I do like to see the sorts of ideas that they generate and explore in their own work too. I've made probably 6 or 7 major documentaries, feature length, for both festivals and television. But something that's interested me a lot is what I see as this kind of loose trilogy of works that address human rights issues in the Asia-Pacific region. I did one that looked around East Timor, issues around East Timor, called Punitive Damage, then one around coup issues and other issues in Fiji called An Island Calling, and most recently I've just completing Brother Number One, which is a documentary about Cambodia, or specifically about Rob Hamill, a Kiwi rower whose brother was killed by the Khmer Rouge in the late 70s. He went to Cambodia to appear at a war crimes tribunal there, so we kind of follow him on that journey. So that's been a pretty grueling but interesting piece of work to undertake. I'm always coming across or falling over new ideas and new projects. I mean, I do say to my students, because sometimes they say, well, where do you get your ideas from? And I tend to say, well, ideas are everywhere, but you need to be able to recognise them. You know, you need to be up with your research, you need to understand what current debates are about. So when they do pop up before you, you recognise them as a kind of viable documentary idea. But I do have, you know, a few things in development at the moment that I hope will come off. But I'm also quite interested in the new online environment and starting to develop documentary online. We are actually, for Brother Number One, creating quite a substantial website, which will have sort of behind-the-scenes stuff and outtakes and think pieces and study guides. You know, so in a way the work expands out into the internet environment. And I do think that that's a direction that documentary will go in.